All right, progress fam. I hope you're ready to make some progress today. I'm excited to share day 2 of building progress with me. And so I wanted to share some reflections on the episode from yesterday and then give you some insight, some things to think about going into the next day and the next week and beyond. And so one of the things when I think about progress is that I want you to think about what your progress looks like, because I think when I thought about this, I don't know about you, but when I'm thinking about progress and changes that I want to happen in my life, in my business, in my relationships, I'm often thinking about these big leaps and these big bounds. But really, those are the things that are the result of the little fractions of things that happen throughout the day. It is the consistency and the commitments that we keep to ourselves that are the progress. It is doing the little things day in and day out and having faith that this is going to pay off. And then the leaps and bounds come. And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck with not growing. They get stuck with being the same person that they were yesterday and unhappy with their progress because they're not committed to the consistency with doing the same thing day in and day out. Now, I'm not a person that believes in habits just for the sake of habits. There is a purpose behind them, right? I think that some people will stick with habits and do things that are not necessarily serving them just so that they can say that they're consistent, right? And so that's not necessarily what we're looking for here. We're looking for what is the payoff for this and just trusting that process, right? And until you know what that's going to look like for you, sometimes you just to do the thing, right? Sometimes we're not, and that's part of it, is that we don't know the future. Now, there are ways that we can tell the future when we're looking at data and numbers and businesses. Now, that part is fun. But when it comes to the day in and the day out of just living life and we're dealing with things that are going on, we don't always know what is going to happen in the future. So we can only, that's going back to one of those things where we can really only control our inputs at the end of the day. We can't control our results. We focus on what results that we want, and then what actions do we think are going to get us there, right? And so we want those results, but you don't do the results, you do the things that get you the results. And so that's what progress is. And that was one of the things I was thinking about. And yesterday, thinking about resistance and alignment a lot more, I had this visual that came to mind to me this morning about what does it look like in real life when we are facing resistance versus misalignment. And this may not be real life, but what came to mind is when you come up across an opportunity in life, and it's a door, right? And so doors, you can't just walk through a door, you have to push it open, right? So you have to meet resistance with resistance, and you have to give it more resistance than what it's giving you. And so maybe this is just a door where you need to just push it open, and once you give it some momentum, it's going to open the rest of the way itself, right? But you did the work first, and it was subtle, right? Or maybe you need to turn the handle, or maybe you need to unlock it, or maybe you need a battering ram. Maybe it is something where you have to give it a lot of effort, and this is a huge challenge. This is a big mountain for you, and you've got to beat this door down because you know what you want is on the other side of it. But at least you know that it's a door that can be beat down versus a wall that you run up against, and you're not going to get through a wall. I guess you could if it's just drywall, but let's stay with the visual here. When it comes to a wall, that's where I think about misalignment. So there's resistance and there's a door in front of you, and you've just got to get through the door, and you've got to put in the work, and you've got to shake the hands, and you've got to meet the people, and you've got to serve, and you've got to provide, and you've got to be beat down some so that you can have the strength to beat back on that door, right? Versus a wall where it's not meant for you to go through that wall. Maybe you are standing at the door facing for this opportunity, but the next opportunity you're standing to the right of the door and you're looking right at this wall. That door may not be meant for you, or you are not ready to walk through that door yet. You're not ready to push back on that door and give it resistance. And so that was the thing that I thought about when it comes to resistance versus misalignment. And I remember earlier last year, seeking alignment was something that I was really focused on. And I haven't figured out a great way to articulate this yet, but something that has often come up for me is that the thing that you're looking for, you don't get by looking for it. You get it by doing something else, and that will be the result. So it's a lot of time, it's going back to the taking the action and trusting that it will give you the result that you want, and hoping that it will give you the result that you want, even though that may not always be the case. And so you don't get alignment in your life, in your business, in who you are. By focusing on alignment, you get it by doing things that will help you to determine whether this or this is not in alignment. And that for some people that might be dating. You got to go through a few people because you're really not sure on who you want. This actually makes me think back to when I met my husband. I was not looking for anybody to marry. I was so happy by myself. I was living on my own. We actually met at church, but I do remember at some point in time, let me rewind a little bit. I'd actually went through and kind of like talked to a few people, and we went on a few dates, but it just wasn't jiving. And I wasn't interested in dating with anybody, but these were people were like, you should go out with this person. And I remember that the last person I dated before I met my husband, Clifton. And I met Clifton exactly a week after I broke it off with this person. Super sweet guy that I had went out on a couple of dates with him. And I just knew something wasn't right. Like he wasn't the person for me. And I ended up breaking that off. And I remember after that, I was like, I don't want to go through this. Dating is awkward for me. I'm an awkward person already as it is. Like, I don't even know how to hang up the phone properly still to this day. It's like weird. I was not a person that talked on the phone when I was a kiddo. I didn't have my first boyfriend, I think, until I was like 10th or 11th grade. And that was so weird for me. And like talking on the phone, that's just not who I am. And I just don't have time for I just don't have time for that kind of petty stuff. Like we have conversations about what we need to talk about, and then that's it. And so I never dealt well with those things. So after I broke it off with this person, I remember I had written a letter about very specifically the man that I wanted at some point in time. Like I knew I would get married, but I wasn't in a hurry to do so. And I specifically wrote down the characteristics, the features. Like I wanted a brown-haired, blue-eyed man. I'd wanted that for a long time. And, thinking back on it, I think a lot of the people that I dated actually kind of fit that criteria, even though I wasn't that intentional about it before I met Clifton. It's so funny how you reflect on things and you realize like, oh, I was kind of already looking for that. But I got so specific on the character, the type of person I was going to meet, like very specific. And it was funny that a week after that, I met Clifton, and the way that I met him actually, I feel like I've told this story to a lot of people, but everybody thinks it's funny, which it kind of is when you reflect on it now. So we were going to church, and Clifton actually had went to this church for a long time. I had never even seen him. And so it wasn't a huge church, but it wasn't a really small church. They had 2 services. And so he was there. I'm sure I saw him, but I never paid attention to him before. And so there was a guy that I had gotten to know there, and I was selling a shotgun to him. And when I was selling this shotgun, it was after Wednesday night service one night. I was selling him this shotgun, and Clifton was standing there. Now, he never said anything, but he was there. So, like, that was kind of my first interaction with him. And then I saw he found me on FacePage. He sent me a message. So he had stalked me and found me on there and sent me a message. And he ended up asking me if I wanted to go out to eat or something like that. And I told him I just was not interested or I told him I would think about it. And so we had some back and forth, and he was like, well, while you're thinking about it, do you want to go get something to eat? And so, wit will cripple me. I love to laugh. And because wit is a sign of intelligence, that's really important to me. And so I don't think I thought that intentionally about it at the time, but that is something that came up. And so ended up going on a date with him, and then the rest is history. We knew within about 4 days that we were going to be married. We were engaged about 2 weeks later, and then we got married about 6 months later. And so that is, I tell that story for a lot of reasons, but that was one of those circumstances where it was just alignment with him, but I wasn't looking for it. I just got really clear about what I wanted so that when it did happen, then it would just happen organically. And then I wouldn't even have to know that I knew, it would just happen. Right. And so that is alignment. And there's so many other circumstances. I'm sure you can relate. There's something that has happened in your life where you weren't looking for it, but when you reflect on it now, you're like, yes, that was absolutely divine. That was perfect. Like, I didn't know that that's what I wanted. And that's what you got, right? And so that is alignment. And I think that's how life is supposed to be. I think that when we are being true with ourselves and we're being critical and we're being honest about what we actually want and what we don't want, because that, I believe that is truly just as important as knowing what you do want. And I think it's actually more challenging for people to be able to define what they don't want. And that's one of the things that's going to get in the way of your progress when you're not clear on that, because it's one thing to say that I want to make this progress in my business. I want to do this. I want to be with this person. I want to have 4 kids, da 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 da. But what do you not want? And I think a lot of times things happen in our lives, and they happen for us because we're not intentional and we're not critical about defining what do we actually want. And even when we define it, and life is weird, like, you all don't hold me to it. I don't know all the ins and outs of life. None of us do. I never will. I know that the older I get wiser about it. Now you can go through and write letters out about the perfect person, the perfect business, all these things. I do believe that there is power in visualization and manifesting and things like that. However, there's still an element of that we're not ultimately going to control. And so you can get as critical. And so you kind of have to be okay with understanding if this doesn't necessarily go as planned, that is okay. And being happy with it, understanding that everything is for you, whether it feels good or it doesn't feel good. And so I want you to think about that in terms of if you're seeking alignment in any part of your life, but especially in your business, have you gotten really clear on what that looks like? And this is where it seemed hokey to me at first, but it doesn't anymore, because I've seen it. It's come true through and through so many times. Hold on, fam. I have to go address my dogs for a second and get them taken care of. Pause on that thought. All right, so I'm back from taking care of these dogs, but I lost a little bit of my train of thought of where the sentence was that I left off of. However, again, we're making progress here. The thing that I think I want to leave as far as this thought is concerned with is trust the process and harmonize taking action with it simultaneously and visualizing what you actually want. Oh, I remember what I was going to kind of lead into here. This is why, when I started my business, and I'd worked with so many other businesses before in the job that I came from, but then starting your own business, different ballgame, right? I'd left my job, burned the ships and all these things. And I remember how I wanted to help people, and so many people were struggling, not so many people. One of the things that really motivated me to start Progress to Profits, which years ago, which my business is 6 years old, or 5.5 years old now. The thing that ultimately inspired me is that I saw so many people that were not achieving the life that they wanted because money was holding them back, because they felt like they didn't understand it, which I think is interesting, because just on a very general nature, any adult is using numbers pretty much all the time, and we don't realize it. But then when it comes to money, people are making it hard. And I knew that if this was the thing that was holding people back, I can help people with this, because that should not hold people back. There's too many resources out there these days. It's not hard. It's simple. There can be some things about it, but you just got to learn. And I wanted to be able to have access to that information so that wasn't the reason that held people back. But before you even get to that part, it's like you got to have a vision that's so big that makes you want to learn that stuff, that makes you want to do the hard things. And so I went through this a lot, and going through and doing journaling has been so helpful for me personally. I know so many people that could say the same thing. And so there's definitely value in being able to articulate and write down and be able to see and cast vision to what do I actually want to achieve for myself and with this business. And that is the most important element of building a business, is having that vision clearly articulated. And then the second most important thing is communicating that ruthlessly and just being so passionate about what your vision is for how you want to serve people in the world and how you want to live out your passion, that nobody questions it, right? And I can certainly do better about that myself, but that is the number one reason that companies fail. And that is the number one reason that people ultimately don't have lives where that they look back on them and they're like, yeah, I'm glad with this. Because for me personally, and I think a lot of people feel this way, but they don't know how to say it like this, my biggest fear is that I will get to the end of my life and I will be laying there, because I think we get that opportunity to really reflect, like, did I make the most of my time here? My biggest fear is that I'm going to look back and I'm going to realize I could have done better and I didn't. And especially with the opportunities that were presented to me and that I could have taken a hold of, and I was just too scared, or I let what somebody might be thinking about me getting in the way, or I let what somebody truly does think about me get in the way. And those are the ones that matter the least, right? And so that is my biggest fear. And I don't want anybody else to have that fear, because I truly believe that when we let ourselves stay held back through misalignment or misunderstandings or misinformation or resistance or fear, whatever the case may be, when you as an individual don't live out what your purpose is on this earth, and you get to choose what that is. And I think that our purpose, when we truly step into whatever that looks like for us, it allows us to fully live and it allows us to fully serve. And so it's that win-win scenario. And when you're not able to do that, the entire world suffers as a result. From the moment that you're here to even when you pass, the world is forever changed by your presence here. Whether you lived out your purpose and your fulfillment fully and intentionally, or you didn't, the world is going to be impacted by that. And it's not going to be, for most people, it's not these huge impactful vibrations. It's the little ones. It's the little ripple effects where you affected somebody's life that you will never know their name. And I know that I have done that for people. I have changed the way that somebody thinks about themselves, about the way that they do their business, whether we're still working with them or not. And because I have helped them change the way that they think, whether, like I said, whether we're still working with them or not, they are better off. And then the people that they're serving, the people that they're married to, their kids that they're raising are better off, because I was able to help influence them in a positive way. And I'm not going to see all of those little vibrations, all of those little ripple effects. And so I just have to trust that. But I just have to get super clear on my purpose so that it doesn't matter. I don't care about the vanity metric of how many people did I impact, just having confidence that I did what I was designed to do today. And that's all that I wanted to do, to help people. When I saw so many people struggling with money, and I know for business owners, they are so great at what they do, but money holds them back from wanting to grow their business, because that part gets so daunting and so overwhelming for them that if they didn't have to worry about the complexities of cash flow and understanding profitability, because we have simple systems for that, right? If they didn't have to worry about this, then they would more fully show up for their team and leading their team and creating team members that are going to take really great care of their customers and clients, right? And so that is what helping people with money, about numbers, that is what it's about for me personally. And so that's just one of the things I'm super clear on. Now, I can help people with their money and data in so many different ways. And one of the things that I'm working toward is $1 Billion Brittany, right? And to become $1 Billion Brittany, the company and companies that I own is going to be the holistic financial management and resources company for entrepreneurs. I want to be able to help business owners in every realm of their financial life. Now, right now, we're really just focused on CEOs. We're really focused on business owners that are ready to step into their CEO era. They're ready to lead better. They are ready to really sit down and get more critical about understanding data and using that to drive decisions and being more objective in their business, because they can't keep running from their gut instinct, right? That is not sustainable and it's not practical. And you can't lead and delegate from your gut necessarily. So there's a time for that, but more often than not, you are not going to you're never going to successfully lead a company if you don't know your numbers. So if I can help people to understand that, then I have lived out my purpose, because I know that when they have that confidence in themselves, that they know what they're doing, when they have that conviction, when they have that certainty that I'm looking at these KPIs, that my cash is being managed this way, that I have these reserves back here, that we are this profitable, and they have systems in place that are predictable around that, they are going to show up as a more certain and confident person in every area of their life. And that is the best thing I could ever hope for. And so that's what happens with like little bitty progress, and then just understanding when you meet resistance, when you meet misalignment or alignment throughout your life. And so I was journaling about this last night, about just podcasting yesterday, for instance. And after I got done with recording the podcast yesterday, I'd actually had a conversation earlier before I recorded that episode with somebody, and we were talking about break even. And what that is simply, if you're not familiar with that as a business owner, that is simply the point in your business each month for example, where your total revenues equal your variable and your fixed expenses. So you have broken even. You have no loss, but you have no income. And so this is a really important thing for every single business to know. And so we want to help you know what that is. And from that one simple clarity point and understanding what your profitability needs to be, we actually were able to sit there on that conversation and reverse engineer. This is exactly how many bids you need to send out to customers on a monthly basis in order to achieve the profit goals that you have a year from now. And I just did that at the flick of a wrist. And it was so fulfilling and so rewarding to be able to do that. And just thinking through, now that they have that clarity and that certainty, they can make decisions to move. Like, it's so much easier to know this is exactly the actions that I need to take every day to get this result that I want when I'm able to help people with those systems like that. And so I was just thinking about that. And when you get great at what you love to do, it just comes out naturally like that. I was not prepared for that call. It took a completely different spin than what I was expecting. But I just know, like, everything that people are experiencing in their business, good and bad, there's always a number tied to the result or the input of it. And so I want to be able to bring people back to that objectivity of their business to be able to do that. And so I think it's just cool how we can bring numbers into everything. I was recording that podcast yesterday, and I was wanting to reflect on that conversation, right? And I was looking up some case studies to try to support why this is so important to focus on profit first and not just revenues. And it wasn't organic. So it didn't just come to me. So I recorded this podcast and I went through the motions. I took the action. I did it, but I'm not going to publish that episode. Now, there's a lot of great content that I'm going to take from that and use for social media, but I'm not going to publish that as a podcast because it wasn't what I said it was going to be when I took the tide of change yesterday. And I'm talking about this is just going to be raw and real. And that was not raw and real. And so the thing that comes to mind is that somebody told me a long time ago, don't think, just do. And I'm sure there's times where you don't want that to be the case. I think that's probably actually gotten me in trouble sometimes. It's that thing where your mouth is faster than your brain, thinking logically. Definitely should have thought sometimes in those cases. But I think in terms of when our fear is getting ahead of us, if we let our fear dictate what we're going to do, then our actions end up becoming nothing but fear actions rather than confidence actions. And that's not the person that I wanted to be. So when it comes to this podcast again, and just anything that you're working on, right? It's like that podcast I recorded after that was not in alignment because it wasn't what I wanted to be for you all. And so this process is really going to force me to also get ready each day. And like what I mean, like actually like get my hair ready and get my clothes on. Now I am in sweats today, but they're coordinated sweats. So I still feel a little elevated and it's a Saturday, right? But one of the things that this podcast has also encouraged me to do is get ready every single day. And why I'm so glad about that is because do you ever notice how when you put on a certain outfit, it just changes your energy? And I am so excited. I could not wait to record this today. And I already was, but then when I got changed and I got up and I got ready and I did my hair and I feel so much better and I have so much energy. And this isn't just going to benefit me right now and you all, it is going to go into the rest of my day. One of the things I've noticed too about when I have more energy, just overall, obviously I have a more positive mindset and I don't sabotage myself with the things that I eat and loathing around so much. And so I'm more intentional about making sure that I eat nutrient dense foods. And one of the other things that's really interesting is that I stopped drinking any alcohol on the 1st of this year. Now, I wouldn't necessarily say I had an issue with it, but I'd gotten to where it was like every other night I'd have a drink or two. And that's what all alcoholics say, right? I don't have an issue with it. I wouldn't consider myself an alcoholic, but I definitely was drinking, and I could tell that I was getting brain fog from it. Even just those little things. And a lot, it's been interesting, getting older, the things that you can tolerate a lot less than when you were younger. I'm sure a lot of you all can feel me in that. But it was interesting how just a couple of drinks would make me lethargic by like noon or 1 o'clock the next day. And so I realized that I had to just I want to make this a 10x year. We laid the foundation last year. I want to make this a 10x year. And so in making the progress that I want to be able to make, rooting out the little bitty, like I was saying, those little bitty fractions of the day that are really hindering my long-term exponential growth, that 10x ability. And one of the questions I think that allowed me to really lean into this and just cold turkey, just stop, is that there's a guy that I'm friends with on a face page his name is Tony Watley. He's also on Instagram, really well-known business coach. I will admire him for the rest of my life. Go follow him if you don't follow him already. He has a great story. But he shared a question on Facebook, and he said, what would it be worth to you to achieve all of your goals for 2025? And the thing that simply came to mind for me was freedom. And so I love that question because at that time I had already made the decision. I think it was a day or two after 2025. And at that time I had already made the decision. I'd already set my 2025 goals, and it was focused more on actions rather than outcomes that I wanted. One of the other goals that I set was to do 100 push-ups every day. So far I've done all of those, and I'm not that sore compared to what I thought. But when I thought about that question, I'm like, in order to be able to have a year unlike anything else and to achieve growth unlike anything we've ever experienced before, I have to live and be unlike anything I've ever done or experienced before. And so I have to root out the little things that are adding up and compiling and getting in my way. And alcohol was one of those things. And it's been funny because I remember this morning I was walking, and there's a couple that I walk by their house every single day, and they have these 2 King Charles Spaniels, and I always look forward to them coming out. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. And for some reason or another, I always had the hardest time remembering the wife's name. And this morning I walked by there, and it just came to me. Like, I didn't even have to try. I didn't have to fumble around, and it just came to me. And I absolutely believe that just not drinking alcohol for the last 11 days has attributed to my ability to recall things that I previously couldn't. I have so much energy throughout the day now that I don't remember having for a very long time. I'm normally a person that I get up at about 5 o'clock every day, and I would slump and be so tired by 1 or 2 o'clock. My brain is not working, and it was so hard for me to finish the day. And because I was so unfocused the latter part of the day, it would take me longer to get routine things done. And so something else had to change. And, I get a decent amount of sleep. I probably should get more. My team thinks that I should get more. But I don't like to lay in bed for 9 or 10 hours. That's just never been anything fun for me. And so I was like, what other things can I change that are going to give me more energy throughout the day? So I started consistently implementing my power naps at lunchtime. So I do that pretty consistently now. That helps a whole lot. And making myself do that is still a challenge. But I can always feel, once I'm laying there for about 5 minutes, I can feel my brain go at ease. And I don't even know how to explain it, but it's literally like, I feel like something clicks or it detaches almost. I mean, it was like my brain just needed to have a break because I am super focus mode from the time I get up until noon, 1 o'clock each day. And so that helped a whole lot. And then not drinking consistently, I have been able to work until 3, 4, sometimes even 5 o'clock and not even question about my energy, not need another cup of coffee. And so it's been really fascinating, just cutting out that one thing. And so it makes me think about the concept of less but better. And a lot of times when we're having dis-ease in our business, when we're having discomfort, when we are consistently running up against these challenges, we don't necessarily need to do more. We just a lot of times need to do less. We need to find out, what do I need to eliminate from my life? Because that's what's causing this. And a lot of people, I think their default is to think about, what do I need to add? What do I need to eat more of? What do I need to drink more of? What do I need to supplement with? What do I need to be doing that I'm not doing? Instead of thinking about taking a step back and what am I doing that I shouldn't be doing anymore? And it's not easy to do that. That's why, when we think about challenges that we run up against in businesses, there's 4 B's that I help people try to think about. And there's 3 of them you can fix on your own a lot of times if you know how to read the data about your business. But there's a 4th one where this is why we need to build relationships with people, because we just can't. So you're going to have breakages, blockages, and bottlenecks in your business. And you can look through, if you understand data, if you understand systems of your business, if you understand your client results journey and how people are supposed to be performing, you can identify a lot of these things yourself. This is actually one of the things in Progress University we help people to identify. So we can help you to identify those, but when it comes to blind spots, you will never see those because it is a blind spot for you, right? And so that is where building relationships with other people that have been through what you've been through, they know how to, cross that bridge, they know how to get over that hurdle, is so valuable. And that is the only way you're going to be able to do that. And so that's where when you're running up against something that is unfavorable, or you cannot seem to break past this peak in your business, that is a blind spot for you, and you need to build the relationship with somebody that is going to help you overcome that. A lot of times that's going to be a coach or a mentor. It may be people that you've never even thought about, but ultimately what they're going to help you see is that you don't need to do anything else. You actually need to be doing less, because you can't become the person you're supposed to be by continuing to do those things. It really is as simple as that thing of what got you here will not get you there. What gets you to that $1 million business is not going to get you to a $10 million business. It's not even get you to a $5 million business. And so I want you to be able to think more about, okay, if I change nothing but consuming less of this thing or doing less of this thing, and just thinking about what is the domino effect of eliminating that one thing, so that you will have less things and consumption in your life and better quality outputs, better quality time, better quality days, better quality sleep, better quality nutrition, right? Maybe sometimes we need to reduce the amount of food we're eating and just drink more water. So it's replacing something. It's not adding anything in there at all, but you're still taking something out. And so I want you to be able to think about that. That's going to move a huge needle in your life. Just think more about next time you run up against something, and you're probably thinking about something right now, like, I just cannot seem to figure out how to get past 1.2 million in revenue in my business. I can't think about how to get past, how do I stop doing this? How do I get my team to take over this thing? What are you doing that you shouldn't be? How are you enabling people that you shouldn't be? How are you being the backbone for them instead of allowing them to be their own backbone, right? Or allowing them to use the systems that you've put in place to be that backbone for them, to support them, so that you don't have to, because your number one job as the owner of your business is to stay true to the vision, to continually work on expanding that, living that out, and staying aligned with that vision. That is your number one job, making sure that goals are being set and that they're being hit. Your job is not to be the doer all the time. There is a time and place for that, but in most cases, you need to focus on your vision, on your leadership, and doing less but better. And that's where you're going to come up against a lot of resistance. You're going to come up a lot of friction in your life, is when you're doing too much. And the same thing happens with parenting. I remember when we had all of the kids at home, and that was so hard. Being a stepmom to 4 kids, I can't even imagine, just like parenting in general, like biological parents of 4 kids. They're all 1-2 years apart in difference, and just reflecting on that now, like things we should have done differently or we should have done less of, I believe would have completely transformed a lot of things about how we raise them. Now, they're great. They're older. They're on their own now. We don't live in regret or anything like that. But I think back now, like, we were trying to do all these things and it was never working. We should have just done less. And so I want you to take that away. What are you, especially in gearing up for the weeks and the months ahead and going into the rest of 2025, what can you do less of that's going to give you more margin in your day to really be able to create the vision that you want? And in that space will fill up with the results that you want. In that space is going to be the profits that you want. In that space is going to be the growth that you want, because you're so constricted and you're so marginalized right now. that you can't actually expand, so that you don't even have room for the growth that you want because you're doing too much of the wrong things. And so where are you running up against resistance versus misalignment? And as you grow, the things that should be on your plate are going to become less and less and less. And that is the great thing about growth, is that it doesn't add to us. It actually takes away, so that we truly experience the essence of who we are, and other people do too. And so I know that that might have been a little like hokey for some people, but this is how we use data. Again, like, this is how we drive this stuff. This is so important to me. My spiritual health and relationship is so important to me. And I know for a lot of people in business, that's not going to speak to them, but I know that profitability will, but they can't even, that doesn't speak to them because they're in such a grinding place in their business. There's such a chaotic environment in their business that all they can focus on is numbers and money and people, and getting rid of the chaos or minimizing the chaos going in their business. And once we start to make progress on those systems and that data and the cash flow, and having that clarity and that precision in their day-to-day, and it actually starts to give them their life and their time back, then they start thinking more intuitively about their vision, about what they want for their life, because they have space to do it now. Because when you're under the crunch, all you can think about is urgency around what you can actually see, like tangibly in front of you, not what you can envision. And so I want you to be able to create space for yourself to be able to do that. So if you're listening to this and it's the weekend, this is coming out on a Saturday, then hopefully that means that you're going to have time to sit and reflect on that. If not, make time, literally 15 minutes, put your freaking phone down. Don't get stuck in the scroll hole. Put your phone down and just sit there and be quiet and try to think about what you actually want. This was extremely hard for me at first, but you got to go through repetitions of it, right? That's what mastery is. When I look at people that have had the success that I want to be able to achieve an element of, a lot of it is just committing to doing the same boring things every single day. And a lot of it is coming back to doing a simple exercise where you're giving yourself space to think and to create. Just close your eyes and think about what you actually want. That is going to drive the results of your business, not money, not anything else. Those things will work themselves out the clearer that you get on that, and give yourself space to really get clear on what is for me, what do I want, how do I want to serve other people, and being okay with that. If you have to, like I said, go back to that exercise where I had written down exactly what I wanted for the husband. I know a lot of people that have done this, and specifically when it comes to the spouse that they wanted to marry, but we do the same thing with our businesses. And a lot of times it turns out better. So it's all about what you're focused on. So I hope that helps, Progress Fam. If this was helpful for you, then share it with somebody that you care about. I would really appreciate if you would give me a 5-star review on this podcast to help other people out. And then other than that, we'll see to you tomorrow, and let's grow.